With Drake recently releasing his new studio album For All the Dogs, it is clearer than ever that despite being the most popular rapper in the world today, Drake is the biggest problem in hip hop right now, and let me tell you why. Now, while Drake once was a rapper just as hardworking as any other star, releasing consistently great and unique albums, as the success went further and further to his head, something shifted in Drake, which is where we get to the root of the problem, which is the decline in his artistry. While people often debate when Drake actually fell off and when he stopped caring about the quality of his music, you can pinpoint Drake's increasing laziness towards his new releases in the latter half of the 2010s. This was the period where Drake stopped carefully curating experiences that were catered to continue the story he was building out in his musical canon and was instead carelessly stamping together packages of trendy songs for quick and disposable consumption. To break down this change with some numbers, when we look at the average song amount per Drake project from 2010 to 2015, they average at only 15 songs per project. Meanwhile, from 2016 to 2019, this number increased all the way to 22. That is a pretty significant increase. Now, with records like Views and Scorpion, while these projects all had their fair share of bangers, what Drake demonstrated in this time period was that he was no longer interested in carefully formulating records that told stories and evoked real emotion in listeners, and instead was more interested in making every commercial release of his another product of the never-ending pipeline of music that will dominate the charts at all costs. Now, as the 2010s concluded, Drake only took this model even further as we look at the current era of his music in the 2020s. So far from 2020 to 2023, Drake has given us 5 different projects ranging from major commercial solo albums like Certified Lover Boy and For All the Dogs to smaller ventures like Honestly Nevermind and Dark Lane demo tapes, and what all of these releases indicate to us is that Drake, the artist we once all knew and loved, has died, and what has taken his place is the worst thing imaginable: Drake the brand. From albums like For All the Dogs to even a record like Her Loss with 21 Savage, any sort of quality control Drake once had for his work is gone, and now the focus driving his new material forward is the desire to merely meet a quota. Drake doesn't drop music anymore to tell stories and to really offer up unforgettable experiences to listeners, but instead is putting out albums to capitalize on his name value. Now, this doesn't imply that all of Drake's new music is inherently bad, because that is not the case. There are great songs scattered all throughout these projects, and even entire records like Her Loss were received pretty positively, but beyond the sheer quality of the music, all of these releases are cut from the same cloth and are all engineered to serve the same disgusting purpose in the industry. In our current era, the only thing Drake has gotten better at is getting more and more out of continuously less and less. Despite Drake's modern albums being almost undisputably worse in quality than projects like Take Care and Nothing Was the Same, they have been just as and even more successful endeavors for him, and here is why. Without putting in anywhere near the same amount of work to curate and really hone in on a particular vision during the album's process, these monstrously sized and frequently released Drake albums have become the musical equivalent of fast food. You know they are bad, but they are still going to sell circles around all of the other competition in the market. Now, with Drake's shift from artistry to foolery, to understand why he has had so much success despite his albums getting continuously worse in quality with every project, all of his modern records follow the exact same formula to a T, and it goes like this. The first thing they have to do is create controversy. The next is to release as many songs at once as possible. And the third and final is to follow trends. Now, if you don't think all these projects fit within these guidelines, let's just look at it further. When it comes to creating controversy, now this is an aspect of Drake's music that has only gotten more lucrative as the decade has went on. Whether we look at the album cover of Certified Lover Boy or the polarizing switch in style of Honestly Nevermind, all the way to the controversial name calling on Her Loss and For All the Dogs, one of the core aspects of all modern Drake records is to stir up as much stuff as he humanly can, as this ultimately brings in more eyes. From bars that throw subliminals at Kanye West and Megan Thee Stallion to lyrics that people still piece together to further feed the theory that Drake is responsible for the passing of XXXTentacion, nearly every single song Drake writes serves the purpose to merely stir up hype and controversy rather than stand on its own as a bona fide piece of art. This is the only plausible reason why a rapper like Drake has gotten more and more petty and immature as his career has went on, as coming up with the most ridiculous lines, album covers, and premises for entire songs just drives everybody to come back and see what he has done next. Now, the next aspect of Drake the brand's business model is pretty straightforward. All this guy does is pump out song after song. From massive albums stuffed to the brim with filler like For All the Dogs, to even something like Honestly Nevermind and Her Loss, which are surprisingly lengthy. You know it's a problem when even the shortest Drake record released this decade is still 50 minutes long. Now, to put this into perspective for a second, somebody like J. Cole, who has released just one album this decade, gave us a project that is 39 minutes long, so it's clear that Drake is not putting out these records because he has this much to say, but is instead focused on milking his worth for every second of time. Now, wrapping these two aspects together, the third rule all modern Drake albums follow is hopping on whatever sound is trending, and from TikTok bait hits like Tootsie Slide to cheaply recycling classic hit songs from the past with cuts like Way Too Sexy, every new Drake release tries so hard to follow the current trends that it ends up offering us nothing new. Now, when you put these three factors together, what you end up getting are the most creatively bankrupt records you could ever imagine. I mean, you could swap around so many songs from CLB and For All the Dogs and even go all the way back to Scorpion, and you would never know that they are from different albums because all of these records are so similar, and as they become increasingly more hollow and thoughtless, the worst outcome for hip-hop and really the entire music industry has become a reality, as no matter how bad an album may be, Drake cannot fail. Drake being immune to failure is a power that very few in the history of music have achieved. What Drake has shown us from the end of the 2010s to this very day is that he can get away with releasing an album that, no matter how bad, devoid of life, and hollow it ends up being, will always end up as a smash hit. Drake has managed to achieve immortality in the music world, while every other force in hip-hop has had to innovate and elevate their artistry, or we have already seen them fall off from the mid to late 2010s to now. Drake has gotten away with releasing virtually the same album over and over again, and I don't think most people realize how bad the repercussions of this will be in the future. Currently, we are living in a year where many people have begun to question the current state of hip-hop. From the lack of innovation to the low quality music mainstream rappers are releasing just to get by, many including myself have pointed fingers at things like TikTok and streaming just causing the industry to change for the worse, but when you really sit and analyze everything, all of the biggest problems in hip-hop today are simply products of following in the footsteps Drake made. The natural flow and progression of hip-hop music is always based on the way the new generation interacts with the current, and with Drake seen as the face of hip-hop, all he has shown to new rappers is to get the absolute most out of the absolute least. This is why almost every new record you hear today sounds the same, and this is why every new album you listen to has so many filler songs. How can hip-hop advance as an art form when the face of the genre has gotten away with making this same exact thing for years at this point? This is why people are saying hip-hop is dying, all because of Drake and the lousy precedent he has set while being the face of the rap world. Now, when we look at the Drake era of hip-hop and see that we are stuck within it, the question is, where do we go from here? As majority of mainstream rap releases continue to decline, how does the art form move forward when its anchorhead wants to keep it in place? Now, in all honesty, I think this is a problem that's only way of being solved is for hip-hop to recourse itself. I think if Drake sat up here and kept releasing music at the rate he has been, we may have to suffer through even more of this, but with him recently saying that he is finally going to take a little break after dropping some sort of new project every year straight from 2015 to 2023, things may just have a chance to finally heal. With veterans like J. Cole getting ready to release a new album while other artists are hunting for the throne, hopefully what's hot in hip-hop can really change for some time, and by the time the next rapper who could become the face of the next generation is taken over, it is too late for Drake to come back and get away with the same mediocre content he has been putting out. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think about the problem Drake has created in hip-hop today, and do you think this will change anytime soon? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to see just how bad Drake's recent albums have really gotten, check out my ranking on every single project he has ever released.